In the pantheon of discontinued doll lines, Mattel's Ever After High would definitely be in that elite tier, with its engaging characters in elegant, detailed outfits, plus a strong overarching narrative. It's held a special place in my heart since its launch in 2013, and aside from pancake face discourse, it's mostly a favourite of doll collectors. People are passionate about the web series, they're passionate about the lush aesthetics of the dolls, they're passionate about whether or not they think Applewhite is a selfish demon or not, and of course, they're very passionate about how everything ended. They're especially passionate about the fact that Descendants is still around and is less good, and how Descendants allegedly killed Ever After High, even though it didn't. There are plenty of factors to why Raven and Co didn't get their proper ending. Pause here if you really want to hear them, otherwise I'll save them for my therapist. They're also passionate about whether or not Ever After High will come back or not. The answer is no, but don't let me tell you that. And because this is a channel where getting unnecessarily passionate about things is kind of a prerequisite, let me throw my hat in the ring. Ever After High's aesthetic has been praised not only in the context of the dolls or the web series, but also branding and packaging. The branding of Ever After High is based in 3 key ingredients: art, fairy tale symbolism, and books. The art side includes watercolour splotches and sketched frames, plus sketches of imagery featured in fairy tales, like enchanted trees, glass slippers, and magic hats. You also have more regal-inspired elements as part of the fairy tale symbolism, like crowns and ornate mirror frames. The last key ingredient is book imagery. This includes bookmarks, wax stamps, ripped paper texture, and finally, the most relevant ingredient to this video, book pages and book page text. This text features in various forms as a visual element of the Ever After High branding. It's all over the initial posters, it's used as frame decoration on the website, it's in the title sequence for the web series, and most notably, it's a subtle but significant part of the backgrounds for the doll boxes. And it's always fascinated me on a strange personal level. It's text, but it's not necessarily there to be read, it's there as a visual accent. But it's text, right? It's gotta mean something. Am I the only one who thinks about this? Okay, maybe I am the only one who thinks about this. But this isn't just any doll channel. This is the Oliverse Dolls Unusually Specific Hyperfixation Hour. Welcome to Autism, bitch. This is how we roll. So join me as I unpack Ever After High's biggest mystery, one that's been hiding in plain sight for 13 years. The first thing we need to do is distinguish between the different types of book page text used in Ever After High branding. There are 3 main types. I had to check my fingers there. There are 3 main types as follows. Text 1 is the main book page text in English language. This blurb is used in mainly promotional materials like posters, store displays, and elements of the website. You'll see this in bold black legible text, only really fading at the edges, layered over page and paint in different orientations. Text 2 is the more varied book pages used on most of the website assets. These are presented as pasted sheets of paper layered on top of each other, and the text appears to be more specific as they mention multiple character names depending on different assets. I'm not sure how many different versions of these exist. That is not the mystery we are solving in this video. Mostly. It's complicated. The real mystery I'm looking into is Text 3. Text 3 is what's used on the doll boxes. It's also used on the title sequence and some website assets like these trading cards of characters and locations. It's a book page length blurb that starts in English at the top of the page, jumps through to multiple languages throughout its duration, and then ends in English at the bottom of the page. It's not as legible as what's used on Text 1, often fading into the page amidst paint splashes and sketches. There is also a Text 4. This one was used exclusively on the 3 teaser sites that popped up before the proper unveiling of Ever After High. These were villageofbookend.com, rewritedestiny.com, and royalorrebel.com. Text 4 essentially functions the same as Text 1, but it's a more generic fairy tale, riddle-ish coded description that avoids spoiling the character or location names as the other texts do. However, this version did make it onto at least 1 post-launch asset. 2, actually. The first one is from the Plan Your Destiny School Planner set. Big shout out to Tumblr user EAH Rewrite Your Own Destiny for these scans. This text matches one of the pre-launch posters, Pages, which also has a version with text 1. Kind of funny how they did 2 versions. The other one, the first one I found, is this standee at a Spanish launch event posted by Henry of Ever After blog. It's cool that it showed up here, but you don't have to hide the existence of Apple White in your marketing materials anymore. She's right there next to Briar. And finally, one of the licensed products from Fashion Angels, the Paint Your Destiny watercolour portfolio, has its own paint-themed text as a background of the paint palette. I don't even know if this is significant enough to count as text 5, but I didn't want to risk not bringing it up, just in case someone else spotted it. Now let's go into what's in the main text, starting with text 1. Text 1 is pretty easy to piece together. You can look at all of the different posters, desktop backgrounds, website assets, then see where everything starts and ends, do a little jigsawing. Realize that the whole text was already available in the Ever After High launch presentation. Okay, it's not the whole text. There is a little bit extra in the text used on the brand assets that doesn't show up here. Here's the full version of that text. Once upon a time, there was Ever After High, where the children of fairy tale legends learned to relive their parents' destinies, whether they wanted to or not. That is until Raven, daughter of the evil queen, rejected her legacy and changed everything. You see, not every fairy tale ends with a glass slipper or kiss from a prince. One student's happily ever after was a poisoned apple to someone else. What, you think Raven wanted to be the most hated one of all? Her rebellious act made anything possible. The wicked can become heroes, while princesses-to-be might not get their storybook wedding after all. But not if Applewhite, daughter of Snow White, gets her way. And she always gets her way. When you're the fairest of them all, why settle for anything less? So shut the book on those stories you thought you knew, and start a new chapter, where the next generation of fairy tales uncover the truths behind their own legends, learn that the bonds of friendship are stronger than any magical curse, and that it just might be possible to write your very own happily ever after. So this text doesn't really reveal anything new, it's just a summary of the initial starting conflict of Ever After High. It sets up the location, the destiny conflict, the two main characters and their relation to said conflict, and a tease of what these characters could achieve at the end. So, text 1 starts with Once Upon a Time and ends with and that it just might be possible to write your very own happily ever after. But get this, so does text 3. The start isn't as legible on the doll boxes, but the end is right there at the bottom, clear as day. A very specific selection of words in both texts 1 and 3. And this is where my theory comes in. I believe, at least as of writing this section of the script, that text 3 is an extended version of text 1. There are more elements of text 1 that can be spotted in the raw English portions of text 3. Some are directly sourced, others are paraphrased with a couple of words swapped around. It doesn't seem that far-fetched to assume the one text was adapted from another. However, the only way I could prove that is to have the complete text 3 in front of me and be able to translate it. And as far as I could see, that wasn't possible. The text on the box backgrounds is only legible in portions, which makes it harder to not only transcribe, but also to isolate specific languages for translation. I needed to get the full story. Literally, it's a storybook. This is the part where you laugh. I'm not asking anymore. This is something I've been curious about for a while, but I only got serious about looking for this text around 2022. And knowing my release schedule, of course it was going to take like 4 years to get to this point. I even shot out some feelers to the couple of contacts that I could find, namely the line's head packaging designer and Sweet Tooth Designs, who created some consumer packaging for the line and some style guides, inquiring whether they had access to the text and whether they could send it over. Now, if you look at the progress bar on this video and where we're up to now, you might be able to tell I was ghosted. I was aware that there might be some contractual issues with giving out information from a project like this, so I wasn't exactly incensed that I got nothing back. It's just one of those things, it wasn't a pressing issue. I will say, and this is embarrassing, I did at some point down the line get to the point where I was having dreams about this whole thing. I wish I was kidding. I had a dream where I was in a shop with an Ever After High display and they had this plastic wrapped pillow on sale. And if you wiped it with water, like Aquadoodle style, it would reveal the fully translated Bookpage text. I couldn't see with my eyes that it was text 3, but I knew in my heart it was text 3. And this is why we don't collect dolls. Now that I'd exhausted all my get out of jail free cards and, damaged my psyche a little, it became obvious that if I wanted this thing out in the open, I was gonna have to do it myself. The process of finding the full text would take place over 4 stages: source, collect, collate, and translate. Since the text from the box backgrounds is as faded as it is, I couldn't source the full text from one box alone. But other Ever After High boxes have different sizes, orientations, and layouts. And more importantly, the text has different levels of legibility depending on the theme. For example, the sugar-coated box backgrounds feature bolder, more bled-in text, while the Legacy Day boxes are wider, meaning a greater amount of text is present on the background. So if I wanted to get as much of the text as possible, I would need to source as much of it as I could. From there, I'd collect the text and put it on a document with the forward-thinking 2026 method of just writing what I see. I could try and use the iOS feature where you can highlight text on an image, but I feel like the iffy level of accuracy is more trouble than it's worth, especially if I want the exact text, which I do. Once I'd gotten as many collected portions of text as I could, I'd then start looking for points of connection where one sentence has led to another, and hopefully I could collate it into the full passage of text. And finally, once I had the full multilingual text, I could isolate the individual languages used and translate each portion into English, revealing the complete text in one singular language. I'm using English as it's my native language, and because it's the language of the other Bookpage texts used in Ever After High brand assets. Consistency, you know? So let's get this thing started by using our first source for the text. I lied! So I was looking at some of the miscellaneous branded items from Ever After High just out of nostalgic curiosity, but also to see if and how the Bookpage text was implemented in general. And most of the time, other than the packaging, the Bookpage text rarely shows up on bags or notebooks or t-shirts or other licensed products. It's usually this more vector-friendly slab serif on those. But one exception to this rule is this pencil case that I saw on an eBay listing that must have gotten sold because I can no longer find it. I didn't get a picture of the front because it was in the same style as the other licensed products, but I did screen cap the back because... There we go. Not only is it the Bookpage text, not only is it the multilingual text 3, but it's a mostly unobscured portion of the start of the text. Sure, the ends of the sentences are either faded or cropped, but this still gave me an excellent foundation to work from. Also, just before I started editing the video, I found this post from Reddit user The Faybell Thorn featuring a backpack with text 3 similar to the pencil case. Kinda cool to see another use of it out in the wild, even if I had wrapped everything up by this point. Right, now we can move on to the box backgrounds. I lied again! So, I know I said I wasn't going to investigate text 2. And I wasn't. But throughout the research process, I kind of ended up getting into text 2 anyway. Like I said earlier, there's an indeterminate number of variants, and it would at least quadruple my workload. So as cool as it would be to piece together every page of this very abstractly laid out book, I thought it would be best to stick with working on text 3. However, what if one of the variants was text 3? The website Dribble, with 3 Bs, is a website where designers can show off their portfolios in areas such as brand design, web design, animation, and various fields. And ooh, this one's Ever After High related. It's from Leanne Tucker, who was a design manager at Mattel from 2010 to 2016. This project page features some really cool pictures of how the branding assets are used. On posters, in-store displays, essentially anything that would need Ever After High branding. There's a little style guide with font names, colour swatches, patterns and textures, 2 of which are text 1 and 2. And finally, we have photos from this gorgeous display. Presumably some sort of showcase, likely around the time Thronecoming was released, judging by the fact that Thronecoming is there. It's got a ton of cool display pieces like chairs, trees, stacks of books, and oh hey, there's text 1 right on the wall. And there's text 2 on the backing of these display cases. This page is an Apple one, this one's a Briar one, this one's obviously a Maddie one, and this one is text 1. Fairest of them all, why settle for anything less? And that it just might be possible. This is all text 1. And from what I can tell on the visible sections of the page, it's only text 1, nothing extra. It's on a few of the pages across this display, and it's all the same lines. The wicked can become heroes, the truth behind their own legends. Where are the new portions to fill the rest of the page? Well, seems like I got unlucky, but while we're here, it won't hurt to have a look at some of the other text 2 pages. She may be destined to be fairest of them all, but Apple's not just another princess waiting for her Prince Charming to come to the rescue. This royal beauty is a motivated, smart, I don't know what's next because this bag is in the way.
That's okay, because I found the rest of the sentence a couple of lines up.
Motivated, smart, natural-born leader who takes her responsibility... Wait a minute. Natural-born leader? Natural-born leader? Natural-born leader? They just copy and pasted the same paragraph over and over again! It's the same thing with Maddies and Briars. Famously Mad World of Wonderland, puzzles out puzzles, early bird on this line, the perks of being on the next. They even break up the paragraph in different ways across the page, like they're trying to fool us. See, this part about her taking being the next Snow White seriously ends the paragraph here, but a bit further down they just let it flow into the part about every mirror on the wall knowing that she wants nothing more than... You get what I mean.
So, this brings me to the conclusion that we were never going to get text 3 out of this display.
The pages with text 1 are just the same passage we all surely know and love by now, copy and pasted to fill a whole page.
Okay, so clearly this was a dead end, despite having something of a revelation. Let's just get back to the box backgrounds. For real this time. I had to source a lot of pictures of these backgrounds from reviews and listings and whatever swept up on Pinterest. I even did a little dig on some Tumblr blogs from the early years of the line. That was fun, that was a nice little nostalgia trip.
And over time, I did get a decent amount of reference images. But I want to specifically shout out Spoof Stokes on Flickr and Voice Thing on Tumblr, who each uploaded a bunch of very nice and clear scans of the backgrounds. Plus, them being flat scans makes them easier to work with than the often curved or warped backing cards in Box. So I chucked a couple of them into GIMP to see if I could bump up the visibility of the text, upping the black level, reducing the highlight, and fiddling with whatever slider made a difference. I'm not gonna act like I knew what I was doing until like 4 boxes in.
One of the first theories I wanted to confirm was about the wider boxes.
For example, the 2 packs of Ashlyn and Hunter and the O'Hare twins. Would these have the most complete versions of the text due to the wider frame?
I ended up debunking this pretty quickly when I tried to get an extended version of one of the sentences from the pencil case text.
Wongar's rebellious act changed everything. Raven, la hija de la reina malvada, Vaigata.
I did manage to extend the sentence slightly.
It actually starts with the word however in English, so if you follow this line on the O'Hare box, it cuts off before the last word and loops back into the English portion starting with however. And if you look at the rest of the text, all of the other sentences have this. You don't notice as much because the starts are partially concealed by this tree graphic, but you can catch it in a few places. This tells me that no, there isn't extra text hidden in the larger boxes. But also, there sort of is.
You know when I said the starts of the sentences on the boxes were partially concealed?
Well, having the text loop like that on the wider boxes shows part of the unconcealed starts of those sentences. Also, the Legacy Day doll boxes don't have that tree artwork covering the starts of the sentences, making those easier to obtain. With the Spring Unsprung boxes, the text is also formatted differently. This one line about minty fresh breath usually bridges the end of one line and the start of the next. But here it's near the middle. This also helped with picking up the words that would have been covered by the tree sketch on the signature boxes.
Another difference between the box background text is the level of fading between different lines. Not lines on the text, but different themed doll lines.
I discovered there's less fading on the Legacy Day boxes compared to Signature, though the most faded words and letters remain illegible. This is mostly consistent from line to line, but it's not absolute. I also had to account for paint splotches muddying or flat out covering some areas, this differing by each line, plus the various character and line specific illustrations. The oft mentioned tree from the Signature Dolls, the flooring and Ferris wheel from Spring Unsprung, the woods in Through the Woods. The box for Just Sweet Blondie Locks was one of the clearest and gave me a really nice view of the text, though a portion of the upper to mid section was shoved at the bottom below the usual happily ever after.
Please don't make this any more confusing than it has to be.
In terms of other boxes, I was curious about the backing cards for the playsets.
I knew the text would be layered side by side, as with the multi-pack boxes, but getting to see more of the usually concealed starts of the lines was pretty crucial if I wanted to fill the rest of the gaps, especially down the bottom of the text.
Unfortunately, it was a struggle getting other clear photos of these backgrounds aside from what Voice Thing uploaded on Tumblr. YouTube reviewers rarely focus on the empty box backgrounds, and only a couple other blogs do, like the Toy Box Philosopher, perhaps the only person who also tried translating parts of this text. But when I look at the background of, for example, the Beanstalk Bakery Hangout playset, where the text looks pretty unobscured aside from some very wide crosshatching, I know that's going to reveal a bunch of the text, but nowhere has the empty box close up enough for me to actually make out the text.
I mean, the playset is on Amazon for a reasonable-ish price, and I could just get it to examine the inside of the box. But I'm not going to buy a whole playset just for the Bookpage text. No, seriously. I'm not. Why are you looking like that? I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't. Don't give me that look.
So I've just unboxed the playset, and here are all like the little playset pieces, which are really cool. But we're not focusing on that today, we're focusing on this. As I suspected, the main bulk of the background is pretty unobscured aside from this like cross-hatching. It's like a quilting. The sides, not as much, because you've got like a picture frame and you've got a bunch of like shelving and the table here. But overall, it does look pretty clear. The sides also do have some more fading. Like there's like a whole patch of here is just like gone. The picture inside is like pretty much gone. You can see a little after in there. Same on this side. The top bit is mostly faded, and then it gets a little bit further down and you get some more, and then it kind of fades again, and then you kind of get back into it again. So you can see around here is where you have a little bit of a transferring. So you have the main block of text here. You have like it laid over here a bit. You can actually see like here where you have it laid in between the lines. So that goes like that. And then as it goes over here, it is layered over again. So it's like a little slither up here, a little slither over here, and then like a little slither on this side. And then the main portion is on here. Which, you know, I would have liked some bigger portions instead of just like layering little strips almost. Honestly, I was a little concerned because right now I'm focusing mostly on the bottom half of the text because I've got the top completed at this stage. I'm kind of filming this and writing this all a little out of order, but it is the full text. At the bottom of this side is like happily ever after. Well, it's only the ever after part. You go up, it goes into and that it just might be possible. Same on this side, you have happily ever after. On the main backing you have this is something that's annoying. This is the Fiabe Fantastique line. It's blocked by the copyright thing. Like there's literally no text at the top. You could have put it at the top. And then you go down here, right down here, Fiabe Fantastique again. So the bottom hasn't really been cut out except for like the last 2 lines, which is really just 1.5 lines. It is looking pretty clear. I'm not sure how much in terms of new content I'm gonna get out of it, but it's looking pretty decent, especially with it being the bottom half, which is what I'm looking at the moment. I am already finding some gaps filled in here. So down at the bottom, we have que sepia a. And then this next word I was thinking, is it aprondo? But it looks like it's actually aprono. We also have, I believe this is edizione with a comma, and then it goes into dove. It's literally just finding like bits of word and like just any kind of clarifying letter in here. This is all part of the process that I've gotten myself into. So yeah, this might not be such a dead end. So wish me luck. Sorry, I think I may have just flipped you off. Like, wish you luck. But hopefully I can get a little bit more out of this, and this was not a wasteful investment. I probably will end up putting the playset on Vinted with the box just because I don't really have the space for this. But this is the efforts we have to go to get the text that we need. We're not messing around. Okay, so I don't want to hedge my bets too early, but I kind of think that this was a great idea because I found quite a few loose words and letters that I was looking for. So I guess the moral of this video is buy stuff and it will solve all your problems. Funnily enough, there are some other box backgrounds I need to talk about because they did help me assemble the complete text. I have absolutely no idea where these next images came from, but a good few months after the 4 original dolls came out, somebody, question mark,
posted the raw artwork of the box backgrounds for the full characters.
These were then posted by Tea Time with Maddie on Tumblr in early 2014, where I ended up finding them. However, 3 of these featured the book page text in a different font, one with a more similar build to the font from the Ever After High logo. This text is also less faded. There are still a couple of blank spots, but not as many as the text on the final box has.
I'm assuming these were initial versions of the box backgrounds before they finalized the branding.
The prototype text actually still ended up on some licensed products and website assets, as you'll come to see. But the actual content of the text is nearly identical to what's on the final packaging, though there's one difference I want to bring up.
One of the sentences, the one that begins with UC in English, includes the phrase glass house shoe as one of the things that not every fairy tale ends with.
This made it into the final packaging for the first 4 dolls, but was removed from the boxes starting with the Huntland pack. Except, the original line does show up in the text on the Spring Unsprung boxes, and it's there in the character intro cards from the True Hearts Day special. See, there it is, glass house shoe. Removing this line ends up breaking up the sentence awkwardly in the updated text. Libro de Cuento Romances isn't supposed to start a new sentence, it's supposed to continue the list from the previous one.
But other than the few differences, this is still text 3, so I was able to fill in a couple more of the gaps with these images. The majority of the book page text used on the Ever After High website is either text 1 or text 2. But there are a few uses of text 3 which I was able to pinpoint using the Wayback Machine. My love, Wayback Machine, you will always be famous.
The Ever After High website had a few different versions, at least as far as layouts go. The one from launch relied mostly on a sidebar menu. That one was swapped out around March 2015 for a heading menu, which I can't really access because the Wayback Machine's capture heading is in the way. Hey, everything's still accessible through the sitemap anyway. And of course, by the end of 2015, the site was rebranded with the incoming Power Princess branding, which does not feature the book page text aside from a couple of reused assets from the OG branding. And I got quite lucky in that a lot of pages from each version of the site have been thoroughly archived, including a lot of the image files. Assets that include text 3 include the scroll box on the character profiles that were introduced in late 2014, and a good few backgrounds and containers from the quizzes. Looking for these images gave me a great excuse to do the quizzes. Nice little nostalgia trip in the middle of my hard work. This is a work thing, you guys. Now, who would be my ideal roommate? I got the raw assets by going through Inspect Element, going into Sources, and finding the folder with the relevant image file. With the same gimping, I was able to bump up the visibility of the text and fill in a couple more gaps. The container-style images actually use the prototype text, but there are a few images that are just the box backgrounds or modified versions. While I was at it, I also grabbed some of the assets with text too. I had some free time, so I thought it was worth checking. Turns out there are multiple versions of each character's page, like this Apple page is completely different to the one from the display Leanne Tucker posted. Same goes with this Maddie page. There's also a page focused on Cedar Wood, which I think is cool because she's my favourite character, and I also think is proof that she's the best character. Why else would she get her own page? While we're on the topic of text too, this ad for the Storybook of Legends novel from the Ever After High Facebook page features the book cover placed atop a spread of text 2 pages, including the looped text 1, Apple's website page, and Cedar's page, plus a new Briar page, and
I wasn't intending on analysing much from the text 2 pages, but I need to talk about some of the stuff that I found here.
she's spontaneous, fun, and
Something.
she's also a dedicated friend. She's a carefree,
Something.
helps remind Rose that sometimes it's best to loosen,
Wait a minute, who's Rose?
while Rose keeps Briar in check about her royal...
No, seriously. Who is Rose?
Maybe the next paragraph will tell me. Oh no, this is just more party girl Briar. Then we get to, on the surface, Briar, word I can't read, sides with her best friend Lily.
Lily? We're already dealing with Rose, whoever the hell that is. Now we have Lily in the mix?
There is a pre-existing character named Lily in Ever After High, that being Lily Bo Peep, a character who was voiced and received a name, but not much else. She was essentially a slightly more beefed up background character.
No confirmation that this Lily and that Lily are the same Lily. All we know about Briar's Lily is in the next line of the page.
Who wants things to something in the way they something. They splash the page with the brand's usual watercolours, and it's also kind of a blurry image to begin with. And as for Rose, we see that she's pretty upset about something. I can't tell what.
So, in summary, What the fuck, guys? We haven't even translated text 3 yet, and I might have just found 2 scrapped characters. Or maybe this Lily is in fact Lily Bo Peep, who had a bigger role originally. Or maybe Rose was a preliminary take on Rosabella Beauty? I don't know, we probably will never know. But this was hidden in plain sight this whole time, and I was the only one autistic enough to find it. Guess I'll put that on my CV next to my animation degree, and that time I got a retweet from Kat Deely.
In terms of other Text2 based tidbits, Tumblr user More Than One Together brought up something they'd found in one of the website assets. Normally supremely confident, the current uncertainty at Ever After High has made Apple feel very insecure. Now nothing is more important to her than preserving her rightful place at the top of the social hierarchy. And regaining her promised happily ever after, she uses her powers of persuasion to convince nerdy male students to hack into the school's mirror network, so she can learn others' secrets and use them to her advantage.
Now, this is juicy.
In the series as is, Apple is at times selfish and focused on maintaining her predetermined destiny, to the point where even her friends start calling her out on it.
Easy for you to say, Apple. You get poisoned for what, like a week?
But she's still very much emphasized to be a kind and caring person. Her royal status is as much about protecting her friends from going poof as it is about securing her own future. Not to mention the pressure from her mother and from Headmaster Grimm, who essentially dangles her position as head of the Royal Student Council over her head unless she gets Raven to follow her destiny. But this passage depicts a much more deliberately manipulative Apple, which I'm not surprised they walk back in the final series.
The Royals were already fighting a losing battle in terms of who was the more likeable side. And that's mostly because the Rebels have Cedar, aka the best character. The last bit of text I want to point out is from this same website asset, and it's this tiny little chunk. It's so tiny I can fit it on the screen next to me.
I spotted 3 words that made me raise an eyebrow, and the first 2 are Destiny Day. At least it looks like Destiny Day, in title case. Just like Legacy Day. That got me thinking that maybe the original name for Legacy Day was Destiny Day, but I kinda get why they changed it. The name Legacy Day feels more suited to it being a ceremony of commitment rather than the day your destiny happens.
The other word I saw was Lily. Yeah, remember her from like 2 minutes ago?
This time spelled with 1 L right before the Y instead of 2. Because this chunk of the page is so small, I can't make out what sentence this is a part of, but more Lily content is exciting to me, no matter how small. So that's 5 sources I've gone through in my pursuit for text 3, and 4 of them have been relevant to me finding the full text.
The other one just sent me down a text 2 rabbit hole, and not even the most interesting text 2 rabbit hole in this video. And those sources were in fact enough for me to get the entire multilingual text 3. Now I could start picking out the different languages and then translate the text into English.
I identified 6 languages total in the text, these being English, French, Spanish, German, Italian, and Portuguese. I made a Google Doc, which I'll have linked in the description, where I color-coded each portion so you can see where the transitions are. A lot of the time it just switches when the sentence ends, but there are a good few mid-sentence switches too. Once I singled out each language, it was time to translate line by line through Google Translate, the basic version, because fuck Gemini.
A lot of the lines came out basically perfect, but I did get some more challenging ones in there too.
This one German portion that starts with Weihgarten translated to "We must claim our inheritance on the fateful day." And while the capitalized fateful day to me is obviously Legacy Day, I was thrown off by the sudden shift to we's and ours.
Plus the word inheritance makes it sound more like Raven's getting something in her mother's will.
It's also worth bringing up that the prototype text and the pencil case text swap out this sentence for another, which translates to accept her place as the Dark Sorceress, which on its own makes more sense. The change from that line to the Fateful Day one seems like another spontaneous hack job, like what happened with the Glass House Shoe line, but the line after both of those sentences gave me "or whom someone hated more justly than her" as the translation.
With lines like this, I had to go word by word and get a better idea of the gist of the sentence. And what I gathered is that it's a take on this line from text 1.
What, you think Raven wanted to be the most hated one of all?
I also ran into something odd with this Italian line. This one was a pain to track down in the collection stage.
It translated into "Headmaster Grimm insisted that the storybook student be rewritten," which to me, storybook student is more likely student storybook.
But even then, Headmaster Grimm insisted that the student's storybook be rewritten is completely counter to his character in the series. He'd want the students to not be able to write their own stories, right?
Meanwhile, the Portuguese line before it gave me the sentence, "A viral challenge sends shockwaves through the entire school," referring to the fallout of Raven's choice. But it does make it sound like the student body of Ever After High has been overrun by the Salt and Ice challenge. Remember that?
Meanwhile, the first time I translated this French line about Apple.
Well, here's what I got back. You might be a bit smitten with the young girl too.
Don't love the tone you're taking there, to be honest.
But in the context of the portions prior being about Apple wanting to keep her destiny and not liking Raven's choice, it ends up coming out like Apple has a crush on Raven.
I don't think this was intentional. If you want to interpret it as Rapple crumbs, feel free. But to me, this doesn't sound like what the designers intended to write.
For the relevant word, coché, I got checked as an individual translation, which I took as being like ticked off about something.
That's what made the most sense to me.
And finally, the word ginani, which I found from the pencil case, just did not translate. I assumed it was German, but it didn't translate there, and it didn't in any of the other languages. Even just Googling the word, you can see this just isn't a word. With this one in particular, I just had to go off the context from the surrounding text.
With that, I can confirm I have a translation of text 3. Now, this is not some ultimate, infallible, one-to-one version of the multilingual text.
First off, some things could still be wrong, and secondly, I did have to format and switch some things around for it to make sense. Stuff like the few iffy words and issues with pronouns.
Not the first time I've encountered issues with pronouns. Not the time. But this here is my mostly faithful translation of text 3.
Once upon a time, there was a high school in the middle of an enchanted forest called Ever After High. Now, Ever After High isn't your ordinary school that teaches history and math. Yawn. Ever After High is a special school where the children of classic fairy tale characters learn to live happily ever after. Or at least that is what the Brothers Grimm intended when they founded the school. You see, not all fairy tales end as such, with glass slippers, storybook romances, or charming princes with pearly white smiles and minty fresh breath. What is a happily ever after for one person might be a poisoned apple for another. And each student is bound by magic to follow in their parents' footsteps or live out their pre-written fairy tale destinies, whether they want to or not. However, one girl's rebellious act changed everything. Raven, the daughter of the evil queen, refused to accept her destiny on Legacy Day as the Dark Sorceress, or someone who was the most hated of them all. As if she were really that shallow. Determined to escape her mother's shadow, Raven rejected her legacy to write her own happily ever after. As her defiance sent shockwaves throughout the school, Headmaster Grimm insisted that no student storybook be rewritten. But fairy tale magic is strong, and Raven's destiny, or having no destiny at all, marked the beginning of a new chapter of possibilities. Some students admired Raven for her courage, yet others turned their back on her for putting their tails at risk. And nobody more so than AppleWhite, daughter of Snow White, someone who is determined not to let anyone or anything change the ending of her story. Well, if you knew your story was going to end with you marrying Prince Charming and living in the most legendary castle in the land, you might be a bit ticked off with a young girl too. So, close the book on the fairy tales you thought you knew, and open a new edition, where a new generation of fantastic fairy tales and fables discover the truths behind their own legends, discover that the bonds of friendship are stronger than any magical curse, and that it just might be possible to write your very own happily ever after.
So, what do we think?
To me, this does read as an extended version of Text 1, just elaborated on. At times it almost feels like it's trying to meet the word count, which it is supposed to be filling the page, so I can excuse it.
There isn't really anything there that we didn't already know, except I do want to draw attention to this one line about what the Brothers Grimm intended when they founded the school.
Where the children of classic fairy tale characters learn to live happily ever after.
Now, this could mean like they wanted to lead characters to their predetermined destinies and just kind of forgot to account for the ones that didn't end positively. Or that the brothers, plural, intended on the students learning to live happily ever after, regardless of their predetermined destinies.
That has me thinking of the Giles Grimm of it all, in that vault ensuring Maddie that their stories would in fact continue if they didn't sign the Storybook of Legends. However, if you're deep into the Ever After High lore, you might know that Farrah Goodfairy's diary implies that the blue-haired fairy from Pinocchio did in fact disappear as a result of not following her destiny.
I don't really have an answer for what this line means. Again, this translation isn't necessarily watertight. There could still be some errors. But it's definitely food for thought. Ultimately, I don't think that Text 3 reveals anything as shocking as the sudden appearance of Lily and Rose, but I think this was still a worthwhile project. Let me know what you think about this whole Bookpage text rundown, and don't forget to like this video, and subscribe to the Oliver's Dolls YouTube channel if you want to see more of my work. Until next time, have a fabulous day! Where's the outro music? Guys, the video's over. I don't know why it's not gone to the end screen. Right, I think the universe is telling me that I'm not going to be able to finish this video unless I properly explain why I got into this whole Bookpage text thing. I said that this text fascinated me on a personal level, but I never really explained what I meant by that. Honestly, I don't even know if I really want to talk about any of this. But it would feel weird and dishonest if I didn't get into this, given the amount of detail I've already got into. So, story time. Ever since I was, like 6 or 7, I've had this contentious relationship with Bookpage text. Like, in general, like, serifed Bookpage text. And the idea of, like, it coming off the page, it, like, knocked me sick. Like, the appetite gone. I could barely look at it. And that had affected quite a few things. You know, autistic kid, already going through whatever shit. Stuff like, there was this one Da Vinci Code poster that, like, really did not sit well with me, with, like, letters in the corner. The parts in, like, Winnie the Pooh, so ridiculous, where the characters are, like, bouncing off the text and the text is, like, falling into the scene, which I think is really cool in concept, but just on a sensory level, just knocked me the fuck out. Like, I couldn't deal with it. I even remember in uni, this goes up to uni, yeah, so we got presented this short film that was screened in one of the lectures, which was a really good short film, but some of the stuff in it did kind of feel tailored to trigger that deep sensory ick of, like, the letters coming off the pages. Same with, like, newspapers. I can never touch the letters on a newspaper. You know, logically, it's, like, printed on there, but this kind of thing is irrational in the brain. It doesn't stop the visceral aversion. So how this all connects to Ever After High is 2013. Ever After High is launched at the end of May. The website is launched. There's a whole, like, teaser campaign with the websites that I mentioned earlier. That's all really cool. There's some, like, Bookpage text on some of the teaser websites. I'm like, I don't know about that. I go onto the website. Boom. It's, like, all over the site. It's on the container boxes. It's in the corner. It's, like, everywhere. And I don't know what any of it means. And it's all very, like, there. It's a new thing that I'm not sure of. I was a child. But, like, so as much as I had this huge love for Ever After High, and I bought the dolls, and I watched the web series and all of that, and I consumed it, and I loved it, it was always at, like, a slight distance and a slight hesitancy because of that lettery factor. You probably think that sounds really weird. It is weird. It's really fucking weird. It didn't stop me enjoying the line, but it made unboxings that little bit harder. It made engaging with the website a little bit harder, but I have always still been fascinated by it and still been curious about it. You know, we're always kind of a little bit curious about the things that unsettle us, especially the things that we're unsettled by as, like, kids and teens and tweens. And I think part of this whole finding the translation of the text, isolating it, getting it line by line, word by word, demystifying it, kind of feels like, I hate the phrase healing your inner child, because, like, no. But it's like, there's a level of reclamation over that weird uneasiness and growth beyond it. It's something that kind of benefits the community so that people find out what this means, but it also is a little bit of a personal growth thing. Also, the fact that no one else had done it just, like, kind of set this lane of, like, okay, if anyone's gonna do it, it's gonna be you, the person who was weirdly knocked sick by Bookpage text. There's something, like, serendipitous about that to me. So that is the reason why I actually did all of this. It wasn't because of you. It was because of me. Yeah, I've been too vulnerable in this section, so now I'm gonna be a twat again. And now I think that means I can end the video. Again, let me know what you think of this whole process and the revelations found from this text. To be fair, I don't really think there was a great deal of revelations, but still, about Rose and Lily. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff from me. I know my output has been direly inconsistent. Like, I made one single video last year. That's, yeah, not a great track record. I tend to script a lot of stuff that doesn't end up making it to the edit bay, and it feels like that's been a pretty big problem, especially over the past year. This is why I can never have a Patreon, because I would just be fleecing people out of money every month for nothing. But thank you for watching the videos that do make it out of the iCloud development hellscape. I massively appreciate it. I wasn't going to bring them down, but it feels wrong not to. From me and the Pog, have a fantastic day!
Oh hey, that's text 1.